I mean, potentially Mike Elko, Kalen DeBoer. Yeah, but it gets a lot more difficult now that other jobs like Florida and potentially LSU and Auburn could be opening up.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
That is right. It is a Locked On Crossover to talk head coaching candidates for Penn State and how the landscape of college football could shake out if other jobs open up. My name is Seyko, and I'm the host of Locked On Nittany Lions. He is Brian Smith, college football expert, recruiting expert here with the Locked On Podcast Network. Talks all things recruiting on the portal and covers the Seminoles as well, the Florida State Seminoles, which is convenient for today's conversation as we're talking about the future of Penn State recruiting, James Franklin potentially ending up at Florida or Florida State and the implications of that. But we're going to begin with Penn State and where the meter is for a lot of these head coaching candidates and why Mike Elko and Kalen DeBoer aren't so far-fetched. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. As always, let us know your thoughts down in the comments section. Be a part of the conversation. Brian, Matt Rhule, everybody's going to say it's Matt Rhule. Penn State's not getting anybody else. But Mike Elko goes into his press conference and doesn't really say no to the Penn State job. Same thing with Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri. I keep hearing that Kalen DeBoer is potentially interested in Penn State. His name's not going away. If he continues, now here's the thing with Texas A&M and Alabama, if they continue to win, this gets a lot more difficult, but who knows if their seasons go sideways, Penn State's sitting right there ready to hand over the resources to that program, to an up and coming or an established head coach here. So where do we think Penn State's going to end up going? Is it just Rhule or nothing at this point for you? Or do you think there's an outside shot they land one of these long shot candidates?
My pick is what I'll give in a minute, and it's none of those people, but I think he's a really good coach, but we'll get to that in a second. First things first, for Penn State or anybody else, their biggest problem is guys like Elko and DeBoer is kind of what you hinted at. They're probably going to be in the playoff. Yeah. Makes it really hard because that means you got to punt on your recruiting class, punt on getting your staff together. It's going to be January. It's awkward 100 times over, and this is not a Penn State problem. It's an everybody that's changing coaches problem. So you got to think about that. But at the same time, at least you're on the market because you already got rid of Franklin. So you're talking to agents and everything else. So there's that. But I mean, I can't imagine Elko or anybody else has got a chance at the playoff wanting to do what Penn State needs them to do and like all but quit now, which is completely unrealistic. So could it happen in January? Sure. But that would be a disaster. You'd have a ton of guys hit the portal. Your recruiting class would be a complete disaster. So I'm not sure if that's realistic.
I'm okay with it. If you get Kalen DeBoer or Mike Elko, that's where you can make that risk. That's where you can take that risk. But it's also a risk in itself if those guys get extensions, just like Curt Cignetti did.
Well, I don't know anything about their contracts. They do coach for public schools, so you can look up the contracts and what the buyouts are and how all that works.
Elko would be in line for an extension. Kalen DeBoer just signed the massive I think it's an either an 8 or a 10-year deal that's worth around $100 million. So he's making really good money. But Elko, I think it's in the neighborhood of $7 million, which means that Penn State could easily make him a top 5, top 10 head coach. But I feel like so could Texas A&M.
Yeah, pretty much. I doubt that it ends up that way. But somebody's going to do something like that this year and roll the dice. But that means all the following. If you're going to wait till January, that means you got to know behind the scenes. And it's going to be hard to keep that from A&M in Alabama. That's not how that works in this industry. So I don't know how you do that. And you can't tell your players that I'm leaving after the playoffs and expect them to be bought in. These are very awkward scenarios. So we'll see. But if that ends up happening, college football is crazy, and it's why it's the most fun sport on earth to be entertained by on a daily basis. I'm here for it, and I know you are too. But I would be shocked if the Alabama head coach left willingly for another job. First off, A&M maybe, but Alabama, you could argue, is the best job in college football. That would be wild. So we'll see.
All right. So who are you thinking? You said it's none of those names. It's not even Matt Rhule. I think right now the realistic top 3 between, guys that Penn State can legitimately leverage or bring to Penn State and draw mutual interest. It's Matt Rhule, Eli Drinkwitz from Missouri, and somebody that Manny Diaz for obvious reasons from Duke.
Yeah.
Okay. Mike Elko, Kalen DeBoer, those are long shots. Even Urban Meyer, I think, actually has a greater chance of being Penn State's next head coach than DeBoer and Elko. What direction are you going in?
I was going to say Matt Campbell. He's from Ohio. He actually played. He's a Midwest guy. I mean, Pennsylvania is part East, part Pennsylvania. It's part East. He would fit in fine, and he's been at Iowa State forever. At some point, are you going to take a job? I mean, there's only so much you can do at Iowa State. You cannot get the elite players to go there, and they've done a great job. Winning 7-8 games a year at Iowa State doesn't sound like much, but that's about the equivalent of 10 or 11 at Alabama. It just is. Rocco Beck ain't going to be there much longer. How good are you really going to be? You could be 4-8 real quick at Iowa State. So that league's gotten better. Texas Tech, BYU spending money, Baylor spending money. You want to be in that rock fight? That's not going to be very easy. So I wouldn't be surprised if he at least got an interview. We'll see. But at the same time, they've got to pick somebody. Diaz wouldn't shock me if it ended up being him. I don't think that'd be a great pick, but he would stabilize the program. There's that. But these home run hires for everybody, again, just to reiterate, it's really hard because they're not going to be done until January. You miss the portal and you miss National Signing Day. That's rough, man. That's really rough.
Yeah, and once you make a hire, there's don't quote me on the amount of days, but I think there's give or take a 2-week window for Penn State
15.
players to 15 days exactly to leave. Penn State doesn't get an opportunity to bring players in, but I guess in theory, if Elko or DeBoer would leave, then they also get a window to once that hire is made by A&M or Alabama to replace their respective head coach in a hypothetical, those players would then follow to Penn State. So kind of all balances out at the end of the day. I'm fine with it. I'm fine. If Penn State thinks that it can legitimately land one of the best coaches objectively in college football and poach from the SEC, do it. Because there are a lot of good coaching candidates out there for Penn State. That's why I don't think they need to settle for a Matt Rhule. I don't think Matt Rhule's the worst hire, but it's definitely not the best hire that they could make, especially again, when guys aren't directly saying no other than Cignetti in Indiana. They made that very clear that they're going to stick with each other. But Penn State, the competition gets a lot tougher when Florida is now opened up. Potentially Florida State, who you cover, could open up. LSU, Auburn. So do you want to wait till January, middle of January, to go up against all of these other blue blood or just elite caliber schools where they're all top 15 and now you're courting the same head coaching candidates?
That's something that a lot of people have discussed. Our buddy Zach Blackerby runs Locked On Auburn. He's made it obvious, hey, this isn't a great year. Like Free's probably done, but like this isn't exactly the best year for this. Like the Florida job to me is out of this list is the easy number one because of recruiting. But that, like you said, LSU, Penn State, Auburn, like the pickings are going to get slim really fast.
Oklahoma State is in there too. That's still a coveted Big 12 job.
Yeah, and now, I mean, who knows what other jobs will come open. NC State's a pretty good bet to come open. There's a lot of opportunities, man. And that not only, this is the other part. It's not who you hire just at head coach. It's your assistants. And if more jobs come open, the coordinator pool will get dwindled real quick because one of them's going, they want me to be the head coach. You got to take those jobs. It changes the trajectory of your families for generations. You can go get a $25 million contract for 6 years. It doesn't sound like much, but even if it's just that amount, I mean, it's still $25 million somewhere. You got to take it. So this is a very awkward year for any school, Penn State included, to go get a head coach.
So maybe it's in their best interest to make a decision sooner rather than later. But if you're going for the home run, you're going to have to play the waiting game. It's just something to keep an eye on from Penn State's perspective. And more jobs could, in theory, open up and make this a lot more difficult. And Florida already made its decision. I said how Penn State has started somewhat of a trend here that no buyout is too big, no recruiting class is too great. You can move on from your head coach if it's not working out. So Florida did that with Billy Napier. Does that mean they're getting the guy that Penn State just fired? Might not even be that Florida school that gets James Franklin. We're going to talk about it next here on this Locked On Crossover. And this episode is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts carts for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIH Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else. From footwork to breath work, athletes sweat all of the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. And with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. That's Mazda. Mazda, move and be moved. And this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs. With tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. You're going to love how Peloton IQ, the system, offers real-time strength coaching. It actually tracks your reps, suggests the right weights, and corrects your form, making every rep safer and smarter. The swivel screen is a game changer. You can go from running on the Tread Plus to strength training without missing a beat. And the personalized class recommendations keep you engaged. You get workouts tailored to your vibe and your energy level each week. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. That is onepeloton.com. Brian, this is perfect to have this conversation with you, because you talked Locked On Seminoles, and Florida State could potentially move on from Mike Norvell, whether that's sooner, whether that's later. It sounds like he's going to be the head coach for the remainder of the season. Maybe that's not the best decision at the end of the day, and maybe that changes pretty quickly here. But James Franklin could end up in Florida, maybe not with the Gators, but maybe actually Florida State. Initially, I didn't think that would be the best fit. I didn't think that James Franklin would end up at Florida State. If anywhere, it would be Florida, because he wants to be back in the SEC. I think he believes that Big 12 and ACC jobs are beneath him, that Virginia, and remember, we didn't even mention Virginia Tech. That's another job that's open, and at least it's a high profile job. North Carolina could come open, right? If Bill Belichick's like, I'm done with this. This is not what I signed up for. I don't think Franklin views any of those jobs as something that's equivalent. I think he feels like that's a step backwards for him. So it makes sense if Florida doesn't get Lane Kiffin. I think Florida wants Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin wants Florida. But for whatever reason, if that doesn't happen, then there's Jed Fish. Urban Meyer has expressed interest, at least quietly, from what everybody's kind of hearing in the media, that he is interested in getting back into coaching with the right fit. So I don't think that Franklin's the first choice for the Gators, probably the fourth after those three names. But for Florida State, if they move on from Mike Norvell, explain to me, does Franklin fit with Florida State? Because I've always gotten the impression that that's not going to work.
I wouldn't think it would be necessarily a great fit, but he has coached in the South before. He was at Vanderbilt, and he's a recruiter. Lord only knows Florida State fans would be all over that opportunity, because Norvell is not a good recruiter by trade. But I just don't think that they want a guy that fits his mentality. They need somebody that's more rah-rah and is an offensive coach. Like, the offenses at Penn State is what he got yelled at all the time about. So I don't think the fit is there. And then, like, again, he's not as all shucks as Bobby or any of that. Like, North Florida's pretty chill. He's a little pretentious, I think, for what Florida State fans would be used to. But if he came out of the gate winning, they'd put up with him. So two ways to look at it.
Winning cures everything, because had Penn State just won one other game, he would still be employed with the Nittany Lions. So what direction would Florida State go in then? And then do you think that Florida, do you think I'm wrong to say that James Franklin would be the fourth name on that hypothetical list for the Gators?
It's possible. I mean, I don't know what. There's no way he would say no to that job. That's a top 5 job in college football. But the guy they want the most is Kiffin.
Yeah.
Second on the list is Marcus Freeman, which probably not very obtainable.
Well, Jed
After
Fish.
That, he's on the list, but a little further down. He hasn't been in the East here recently, but he's a Florida guy. His wife's a Florida gal. I mean, he'd probably crawl there, but he hasn't won big.
Yeah.
You know, there aren't many guys like that. And getting people to make lateral moves, uproot their families is pretty hard. But Florida's got the Bull Gator Club, so anything's possible. Franklin would be on the list. You know, I don't know how far down he is, but Florida fans after this, what is it, 4 in a row they've fired, like since Meyer? Like, I don't know if Franklin would be the answer they're looking for. So we'll see. But right now, Kiffin's top of their board.
Yeah, it seems like Lane Kiffin or bust. When I'm thinking Florida State, Deion Sanders, because obviously he played there. What are we thinking for Florida State? And you're more plugged in there.
I don't think Deion's going anywhere because he recently admitted he had some pain in his leg, blood clots and all that stuff. And he said so openly, unsolicited. That's not going to go over very well with ADs because they need consistency. Yeah. You don't know how long Deion's going to coach. I don't think he's going anywhere. Nothing against him, but that's just a medical thing. These are the guys that I would call if I was Florida State, LSU, Penn State. And I think all of them are possibilities. But like I've heard Jeff Brom is going to stay at Louisville. He's going to get a phone call from everybody, but even UF.
He is. Yeah.
He's a really good coach.
Yeah.
He's a Louisville grad.
Yeah.
He wants to stay. Like Florida, if you don't have interest in Florida, you pretty much aren't leaving anywhere.
Okay.
No offense to Louisville. That's not competitive. Which one's the better job? It is what it is. I don't know if he would come. Again, I'm a bigger Matt Campbell fan than some. I don't know if he'd be a fit. Florida State, Florida, I would imagine they'll kick the tires. But then you kind of get into that iffiness. Like with Florida, okay, it's Lane. He's got a connection there. His wife went to school there, etc. But then it's just kind of the abyss. Like, where do you think is the best fit? And there's about 20 names that I have on here. I don't know. Like, I could see Florida State ending up with Fran Brown because he's got connections recruiting in Florida. He coached in Georgia. I don't think UF would take that, but I don't think Florida State's as good a job as UF because the SEC moniker, it changes recruiting.
Yes.
And they honestly just have a different budget. The other name, though, is Rhett Lashley. SMU's got deep pockets because of all the oil money. That's a name, if I was Penn State, that I'd be interested in. He was the OC at Auburn in 2013 through 16 when Auburn went to the national title game. They were really good through there. That's a possibility. Alex Golish is kind of the wild card. He's the guy that's at USF. He was with UCF, and then they went up to Tennessee. He knows offense. Again, especially schools like Florida State, they're used to offense. That's somebody I think that would be interesting. I don't know if Penn State would be interested, but I just think he's a guy that can coach anywhere. He's taken a misfit team that went to the swamp and won this year. That's somebody you should watch. And then you get into the coordinators. Buster Faulkner at Georgia Tech. He's coached all over the South. He's been under Kirby. That would be an excellent hire. Then you get into some of the other coordinators too. Will Stein at Oregon.
Yep.
But I don't think there's going to be any home run hire across college football unless Lane goes from Ole Miss to Florida.
Well, and that's just it. I think James Franklin doesn't even need to make a decision fairly quickly. He's always going to have the fallback potentially. Virginia Tech's going to want him, even though he might not want Virginia Tech initially. Same thing with Florida State. UCLA's in the Big Ten. Washington, if Jed Fish does happen to go to Florida, if there is mutual interest there, if they, for whatever reason, don't get Lane Kiffin, and then it's the domino effect. If Kiffin leaves Mississippi, if he leaves Ole Miss, then Ole Miss opens up, and then what direction do they go in? Does Auburn fire Hugh Freeze and then go get a Rhett Lashley? That would make a ton of sense to me. That's a match made in heaven. I've always said that the best job for Franklin outside of Penn State was either USC, Florida, or LSU. What if LSU moves on from Brian Kelly? Again, that's my opinion. Some people are going to disagree. Brian, you might even. But that's the thing. There's going to be this coaching carousel that we've never seen before that's completely unprecedented. And then if Fish happens to go to Washington or leaves Washington to go to Florida, then Washington actually becomes somewhat of an ideal destination for James Franklin.
LSU's its own entity. There are very, very, very few people that would fit in Baton Rouge. So you got to make the decision, are we just going to take a really good coach? Because, like, no offense, but Nick Saban didn't fit in Baton Rouge anymore than, anybody else. Like, he's from the Midwest. You know what I mean? He's West Virginia, Ohio guy. So that's the most difficult job to project, but they're going to go big game hunting too.
Yes.
So that just adds a lot. And for those who don't know, their remaining schedule is pretty difficult. They got A&M, at Bama, and at Oklahoma. They're already mad, and they got 3 games that are losable left. They're going to lose at least 1, if not 2 more of those.
Yeah.
That's going to be very interesting if LSU's job comes on the market.
Well, we've already alluded to it throughout the show, between James Franklin potentially taking another job and not going the media route, because for Penn State's sake, it would actually help them if he goes and becomes a college football analyst for 1 to 2 years and takes a bit of a hiatus. But recruiting could be bad for Penn State. But I'm here to say that's all okay. We'll talk about it next here on this Locked On Crossover. And this episode is brought to you by Game Time. College football is back, and we all couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's really nothing else like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why you should use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. You can pull up Game Time right now, and in just a couple of taps, you'll see amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games for as low as $25. And if you've never been to a stadium, if you've never been to a venue before, not only for sporting events, but concerts, comedy events, you name it, you can actually see your point of view ahead of time. So you're not second guessing yourself about the seats that you chose. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account. Use promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. I am here to say it is not the end of the world if Penn State takes a step back in 2026 and 2027 for recruiting. Again, all could solve itself, and that's not even a guarantee. It's not a guarantee that Penn State's going to take a major hit in recruiting. Look, the 2027 class is decimated. Okay, Keemon Spell's going to probably go to Notre Dame. He already has a projection from Rivals. People know that name because he's a 5-star running back that was committed to Penn State. They lost Khalil Taylor earlier, just a few days before James Franklin was actually fired. And then Leighton Von Brandt, Gabe Jenkins, they both decommitted. And then the 2026 class is actually kind of held together by a Band-Aid, but Terry Smith, still being the interim head coach, and was the associate head coach, deserves a lot of credit for at least maintaining the class of 2026 together. They would commit to Penn State, and they've said, hey, I am still committed. I would like to be here, but because I don't know what's happening, I have to open up my options to make sure I'm doing what's best for me at the end of the day, which I could never blame them. The transfer portal solves all of this. You get a new head coach, you're going to get the players that he had for the most part to follow him. You could potentially get other players in the transfer portal as well, as there's more coaching changes. So if this was pre-2021, before the transfer portal and before NIL, Brian, I'd be concerned. I'd say, this is going to be a 3, 4, 5-year rebuild plan. No, you can reload immediately because of the transfer portal, as we've seen with Indiana and Curt Cignetti.
If you hire the coach, let's just use, since you brought him up, the Cignetti method. They brought 13 players over from James Madison. Mm-hmm. That mattered. They already knew the system, and they were key guys. Hey, man, Fisher, like the linebacker and stuff, like those guys were plug and play, changed their program. However, I don't know which coaches they're going to hire and how many guys would want to go. It's Penn State. It shouldn't be that hard to sell. Yeah. But at the same time, if you get the right guy, maybe you can hit it in the portal. Even Florida State under Norvell, who I don't like to say his name out loud very much, is the guy that runs Locked On Seminoles. He hit with the portal a few years ago. They were 13-0. Yeah. So it can happen. That's a method, but I still think they need to hire a guy that recruits first. Portal is the cherry on top, because that's the long-term method. In a school like Penn State shouldn't have to rely on the portal for more than like a year. Just want to throw that out there.
No, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. I'm not looking to play college football free agency from Penn State's perspective every single season. I don't think that's the answer. But if you're looking to stop the bleeding, if you're looking to be a contender rather than rebuilding, scrambling to rebuild, you can use the portal as a 1 to 2 year solution and then get recruiting to supplement and then have that overtake it by the time you get into year 3, year 4, year 5.
Yeah, I mean, once you get to that year 3, if you hire the right coach, Matt Campbell or whoever it ends up being at a Penn State, you should be top 10, more than likely, barring the quarterback getting hurt in fall camp or something like that.
Yep.
It's not that hard to win at Penn State. Like top 15 should be like minimum, barring again just something.
That's what James Franklin was doing. That's what he was doing.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. And like, he's a good coach. He's just not a great game day coach. That's obvious. But he managed the program from a recruiting, talent evaluation, fit standpoint. He didn't have a ton of problems there. There's always going to be some. They're 17 to 23-year-olds. They're going to have some idiots at every program. But overall, they did a great job with that. And they were good. But at the same time, can the next coach take that next step? The best way is to recruit even better than Franklin did, probably. And that's the only thing left for Penn State to do.
Well, and then there is the Franklin effect. If Franklin stays in coaching right now, he'll be at least able to he'll make Penn State's job a lot harder. Let's just say that. Oh, well, Penn State should be able to out-recruit James Franklin wherever he lands. I'm still saying he's going to be able to take with him either players currently within the program or players that were going to go to Penn State if he ends up at a Florida State. If he ends up, especially out of Florida, there are Big Ten SEC caliber players in that class of 2026 and on the team currently that could absolutely follow him to one of those destinations. And then if he stays in the Big Ten, Washington, if that opens up with Jed Fish, or if UCLA wants to go with them, because I always said that USC and James Franklin would be a great fit. Well, since USC is off the table, UCLA, even though they're little brother to USC, that's still Los Angeles. That's still in the Big Ten. They can give that's a Big Ten job. And yeah, it might seem beneath Franklin. It's not as far down as some of these other potential jobs are because it's in the Big Ten. So you would still have to, I just don't like it when James Franklin is a great recruiter. He is an elite recruiter. So I think he'd be pretty preoccupied with California. But if he ended up at a Florida State, you absolutely know he's calling on Virginia, Maryland, DC, which is pretty routine, and then Pennsylvania. He has all those connections up the Eastern region. So it's just not going to be ideal for Penn State. They will go and get their own recruits, own players out of the transfer portal, but it's still going to sting initially, especially if James Franklin. That's why I say take the media route for 1 to 2 years. Let your connections kind of fizzle out for a little bit and then come back because then it won't be as bad for the Nittany Lions.
It sounds like he wants to hit the ground running, like he's got
as he should.
But I have no idea where he's going to end up. Like the UCLA job would be interesting because obviously that's where the problems really began. How ironic would that be? Yeah. But maybe he ends up at some other job. Maybe it's Auburn after they get rid of Hugh Freeze. That's, a possibility. Who knows?
Auburn media figures want him. I mean, shoot, I was listening to our counterpart over at Locked On Auburn the other day. Zach Blackerby said James Franklin's one of the first names that comes to mind. Okay, same thing. If he ends up at Auburn, he's still calling on the state of Virginia, the state of Maryland, DC, Pennsylvania. He is going to go up the East Coast and he'll say, hey, Chaz Coleman, hey, Tony Rojas. That's a big deal. You would like to keep some of those players.
I agree. And there's nothing you can do about it. That's just the price of doing business in college football today. Yeah. That's absolutely right. So I get it from a Penn State perspective, but there's no avoiding it. You're not in control of that button. So you just do the best you can and represent your brand.
No, Penn State will get its own players with a new head coach. I'm just saying, if you're going to try to, hey, let's supplement through recruiting, James Franklin's going to be right there in those same conversations with those same prospects, just so everybody's aware. It's not the end all be all. Just know that it makes the new head coach's job a lot harder if he lands a new head coaching job. That's why I say take the media route. Go on to ESPN, make some appearances on College Game Day. You look good up there on the panel. You look good. Why not do that for 2 years? Okay, take some time to yourself.
It wouldn't shock me if he did Big Ten Network or something like that. I mean, he'd be good
at it. Yep.
Yeah, I really do think he would be. He fits the profile. But if you want to coach, you want to coach. The question is he got like a certain level that he has to hit? Is it only like 3 jobs? Like, is it Florida, LSU, something like that, or nothing? I mean, I don't know, but I have a feeling that he'll end up coaching next year. That's my guess.
And that is where we will wrap things up on this edition of a Locked On Crossover. He is Brian Smith, college football expert, recruiting expert here with the Locked On Podcast Network, talking all things recruiting and portal with the Portal Podcast. Also covers Florida State with Locked On Seminoles and talks SEC football across the network as well. So he is as plugged in as anybody else. For all things daily on Penn State football and so much more, check out Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily source for all things Penn State sports, including wrestling, basketball, recruiting, hockey, you name it. Talk about it all. Thank you so much for joining us on this crossover episode. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments section. Brian, it's great to chat with you as always and get your expert opinion.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Look forward to doing it again.